David Downs, fantastic to have you
Kia ora,
here.
thank you for having me.
Kia ora, welcome. Now, look, we're going to kick off. You have had an illustrious career, many different. I looked on your LinkedIn profile, even marriage celebrant there for a while.
I was.
Very interesting.
It's always a story behind all of those things, yes.
But people will know you well for your New Zealand Trade and Enterprise role and obviously your current role. But just give us a little bit of a background of some of the things they may not know about you that brought you here today.
Well, I started my working life as a stand-up comedian and actor and writer, radio, TV, stage, that sort of thing.
And that put you in good stead.
It has. Those skills I learned back then, or maybe I didn't learn them. But anyway, the things I tried to learn back then, certainly even later in life, 30 years later, I find myself going, oh, that's what I learned.
Nice.
Improvisation skills back
Yes.
in the early 90s. So it's funny how these things come around. And particularly things like creativity, which I think is such an important part of the modern work life.
Yeah.
Creativity. Back in the day when you're on stage and you're kind of riffing with your mates, it's all about creativity. And I think the modern work life has changed now that creativity is really important.
Again, absolutely. We're seeing that even more with AI.
Yep.
We'll come back to that.
Yes.
What are you most passionate about? What gets you up in the morning?
Having an impact for New Zealand, I think I'm very patriotic about the country. If you look at the pattern of the things that I'm involved with at the moment, they sort of join together at trying to have some sort of impact. So I do some work in the health sector because of my history with cancer.
Yeah.
I do some work with sort of young people and kind of business and innovation, and obviously the technology space, things like the High Tech Trust, etc. But all these things are to grow a better New Zealand for our future.
Yeah, right. And I think that really kind of does come through. We sort of feel that impact.
Hopefully.
We've just learned a few things about you, acting and sort of some classes and marriage celebrant.
Yep.
What's one thing that we won't find out about you online?
I play the ukulele.
Well?
Yeah. I do play it fairly well. I used to play it really well. I used to be in a band, actually. When I say band, a ukulele group.
Right.
Yeah.
Country?
No, just a bit of everything. Actually, I was the youngest in the group by about good 20 years.
That's not surprising.
Because ukulele is not really a rock and roll sort of instrument. But it was a lot of, to be fair, it was a lot of Rolling Stones.
Nice.
And sort of hits from that. Yeah, just friends in the neighbourhood. But we got good enough to be able to play at pubs and stuff for a while.
Okay, brilliant. Well, there you go. Now you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into this. I want to talk a little bit about brand, right? And not brand in the terms of a logo, but something that holds a position inside customers or prospects' mind.
Yep.
And something that appears on a balance sheet in the form of sort of goodwill. So what are you seeing at the moment in terms of the shift of focusing on brand or tech companies using brand in their part of their go-to-market?
Well, I think most New Zealand businesses, tech businesses, if we talk about tech, are still on a journey to really understand brand, I have to say. And marketing in general, actually, in its broader sense.
Let's start with brand.
Yeah, let's start with brand.
Because I think also, given your current role,
it's
an important part of...
Yeah, well, just the current role, for example, is we're all about brand New Zealand. So New Zealand Story is really the custodian of the brand of New Zealand. And for New Zealand, it's one of the most valuable assets we have as a country. Talk about on the balance sheet, we often make that point that if New Zealand had a balance sheet, our brand would be one of the most important items on it. We know that it's worth about 450 billion New Zealand dollars.
Wow.
Out there with Apple or Amazon in terms of brand value. And this is not us making this up. This is international research will tell us that the New Zealand's brand value is super high. And I guess that's the point for any organisation is that your long-term value of your business is in large part because of the promise that you make to people, whether it's implicit or implied or whether it's explicit and promoted. Brand is about what you represent and what others therefore interpret that you might create for value for them.
Yes.
So the value of New Zealand's brand is we're seen as trustworthy, we're seen as easy to do business with, a place that cares for people in our environment. So if you translate that back to a business, yes, you can have short-term transactions, you can do contracts with customers, you can make revenue on a year-to-year basis, but actually long-term what you want to build is this brand of reputation that allows you to potentially capture value more. potentially it's about exploiting in the nicest possible way.
Future value.
Yeah, future value.
Creating demand.
Creating value. Yeah, being seen as there's a reason why some companies can charge $2,000 a day and others can only charge $800 a day.
Yeah,
and it's probably not all to do with the quality of the output of the people. It's actually a lot to do with the brand.
Yes, and it's just while we talk about New Zealand brand piece. So if you're a New Zealand company and you are going global, and a lot of our clients and a lot of companies in New Zealand, that's how they grow. Market's too small here. What's that role, and what's the opportunity of Brand New Zealand as part of that? And in the context of you're a global company headquartered in New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, for again, the global perceptions of New Zealand, and we know this, are very strong on things like trustworthiness, respect for people, ease of doing business with. It's interesting because New Zealand businesses don't realise what an asset that is, and that it's only when you start to work internationally, and you say lots of New Zealand businesses that work internationally, that you realise how difficult it is to do business internationally in those countries. Not just transacting across border, but go to another country and try and set up a new business, register for tax, hire people, whatever, and you'll realise it's a lot harder because by definition, New Zealand is. We know we're one of the easiest places in the world to do business. Therefore, by definition, anywhere else is harder.
Yep.
So when you transact like that, and others look at New Zealand and that brand value of ease of doing business, trustworthy, etc., that's worth something. You'll get better terms. You might get better payments. You certainly get a look in on things that you might not have come from if you came from a less trustworthy country.
Yeah, got it. So if you've got your own company brand positioning strategy, how do you bring it alongside the New Zealand brand so that you so yes, obviously New Zealand brand is out there, the trustworthy and easy to do business with, but if you're now engaging in a sales conversation with a New Zealand tech brand, how do you bring that New Zealand brand to the table in that moment? And
we've been trying to make sure that we can do that. We architected the system where we have the brand of New Zealand, and then we have this layer of the sector brand, which is for technology is called See Tomorrow First. That's the kind of campaign around it, but it's sort of broader than just a campaign. And we do the same about other sectors, by the way, just as an aside. So the seafood sector's got a brand, the medicinal cannabis has got its own sort of thing. But the idea is that the architecture is that you have the brand of the country, you have a sector level sort of lens on it.
Yes.
Food and beverage is one of our biggest sectors. They've got really significant value. But in the tech space, See Tomorrow First is meant to be a kind of an overarching brand for the New Zealand technology sector, so that you can draw on the best of what's coming from the country brand that's relevant for the tech sector, because not everything is relevant.
Yeah, got it.
And then you as a tech company can then go, hey, we're from New Zealand. It used to be in the old days that you say, we're from New Zealand, we're a tech company, and people go, A, where's New Zealand? B, New Zealand and tech.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we're still a little bit in that space. And so what we're trying to do is create at that layer of the sector level, people should go, oh, okay, tech from New Zealand. Yeah, I've heard of your space sector. Yeah, I've heard of Xero. I know you do some stuff in these areas. I know you're trustworthy. I kind of get that you would have a tech sector.
Yeah,
and now you as a company can go, and yes, and here's my business, and here's what we do.
And that's the bit that you're helping to create that awareness from.
Yeah. I always love the analogy of the wine industry. So 20 years ago, if you were trying to sell Sauvignon Blanc into, somewhere in Europe, you'd go, we've got New Zealand wine, and they'd go, what, New Zealand? And you go, yeah. And then you have to go, and we've got wine, and it's pretty good, and we've got this variety called Sauvignon Blanc, and it's one of the best in the world. And you'd spend 55 minutes of your 1 hour meeting justifying who you are and where you're from. Then you'd get your 5 minutes to talk about your product. Today, you go, Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, and then it goes, oh, we know.
Bring it
and you go, well, here's my version.
Yeah,
and go, okay, cool.
Got it.
So that's what we're trying to, it's a lofty goal, but that's what we're trying to get to, is that you can go in and go, I'm a technology company from New Zealand. They go, oh, trustworthy, great, love what you're doing. You guys are forward thinking, you've got high science, you've got good education.
All those important pieces. Yeah, exactly.
So that's the brand effect. You're kind of using the brand of the country to create, a warm entry for you as a company.
So that's a lot of investment from the government and from, your organisation as well. What about if I'm a CEO or founder of a tech company?
Yeah.
And we know that resources are tight. And we know that, strategy is about choices. And everyone wants a bit of dollars, especially if you're just raising capital. What's the message around investing in brand? And when? So that's the first part. The second part is, when do you begin to really think about investing in that brand?
Well, it's easy for me to say that. I use the experience of me building my own tech company when I was in my 20s. And I'd go back and go, the number one thing we did wrong was we didn't build long-term value in the business. We transacted well. We had good customers. We made money on a year-to-year basis. But at the end of sort of 5 years, we had nothing to show because we hadn't built a brand. We hadn't built any long-term IP as a company, and we had just transacted. So that experience, I always go back to when I'm dealing with tech companies now. I say, look, build value from the very beginning. Like, what's your not your exit strategy in terms of are you going to sell your business, but how are you building the value in your business so that you're more than just a good partner to transact with.
A sum of those transactions.
So for me, I mean, the answer would be, and of course it comes down to budget, but to me, you'd always be starting with the brand. Start with who are we, what do we stand for, what can our customers expect from us, what are our kind of core values that we won't move away from. That's brand.
Yeah.
And yes, you can buy one of our things, our widgets or our piece of services or whatever it might be. But if you leave all that too late, then you're just sort of in this the sort of treadmill of just doing transactions and not building long-term value. So.
Especially and it's easy in the New Zealand market to build a business off referrals and word of mouth, and by just, in those transactions, delivering a great customer experience.
Yeah.
Now you go to the US.
Yeah.
And if you haven't thought about the brand piece, so talk to me. I can see you got a big smile on your face.
It's funny because I always say, when people say, and I say this too, it's easy to build a business in New Zealand, ... And New Zealand companies go, oh my God, is it? And you go, yeah, honestly, I can tell you, I've done 13 years at UTTE. It's easy here. That doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's easier than it will be anywhere else.
Yes.
And so if you're finding it really hard to do business here, then wait till you go to the US or wait till you go to Brazil or something like that. So the point is, and because we've got shortened supply lines, you can get to meet a customer within a few hours. You're probably going to get a phone call returned. Go to another country, it's not like that. So build the value. And again, your point about go to the US, and if you try and show that you're a New Zealand business and you're by yourself, it's a different proposition than saying, actually, we've got this kind of association of the world that we come from, the companies that we've hung out with, and it's much easier now than it would have been 10 years ago, definitely 20 or 30 years ago, thanks to the people that have gone before us, like the Zeros and the Fish and Pickles and the Orion Health and whoever, have built a reputation now, or started to at least pave the pathway for us.
Yeah, they have. And I think that that brings us to the tough decisions that CEOs and founders need to make around this brand piece, but also just around marketing. And I'm gonna come to this idea of a marketing mindset. But on the brand piece, who's doing it well? Who do you see that has invested in the brand, that has now put them in good stead, that they now seen them more than just the sum of their transactions? They're actually now seen as a world-class organisation and hold a position in the mind of
When you get a question like that, you always go to the big guys. They say Zero, clearly. Rocket Lab, clearly. But I think you've got others like Aura who've done a really good job. They won the International Business Awards the other night. They're not a massive company yet. They will be potentially, but they've definitely built brand and brand association in a really good way. Apart from the pronunciation of their name. Sorry, Lance.
It is a bit tricky. It gets a bit tricky, yeah.
But so you want to look for those businesses that are not a million miles away from you, that are doing really good branding. I really like, there's some New Zealand tech companies who've really thought carefully about what they want to stand for and who are they, and their social good, etc., and they're building their brand from that perspective, as well as them doing projects.
I think that is where you need to start. What's your purpose? What's your why? And the visions. And then the brand is around the position and that you hold in the market. Okay, so Zero. We talk about this thing called a marketing mindset. What does that mean to you? When I say that, a marketing mindset, what does it mean to you?
It might be different for me than
That's
it is
probably
for you.
does.
You're the marketing expert. I got this job and I'm basically marketing the country and I'm still not sure what that means. But but no, to me, a marketing mindset is, first of all, you got to understand the real definition of marketing, which most people mistake marketing for promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So is it, marketing with a big M is a very wide-ranging set of activities that's about understanding customer needs and perceptions, building products and services to meet those needs, ensuring that you've got some sort of fit between those products and services and the needs, making sure people are aware of them in a way that they can then be attracted to them, and then managing the whole customer experience.
Yep. So
it's much bigger than just
and pricing,
promoting.
and distribution, getting them in the hands, 4 Ps.
All that stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you've got, so that's the first misunderstanding, is that most people, when they think marketing, they just think, so social media advertising. It's like,
thank you, digital marketing.
Yeah. So I think the marketing mindset is all about that loop of what does the customer need from me, and what am I delivering the right stuff, and should I be changing what I deliver, and then does the customer know what I've got that is of use, and is it pitched right to them, and have I priced it right? So that's the mindset. That's there. In a true marketing-led organisation, they are kind of at the core of the entire strategy of the organisation. It's like the marketing mindset. It's not the tack on. And this is the bit where I think a lot of New Zealand, particularly tech companies, if I'm being a little bit critical, start with a product mindset or an engineering mindset, and then tack on a bit of promotion and call it marketing.
Yeah, and this idea of a marketing mindset, I think you talked about it, being steeped in the customer first. We also see it as seen as an investment, not a cost. So to your point, if you view marketing as promotion, the chances are you are viewing it as a cost, as opposed to an investment in getting the business where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And so, companies like Xero, I think we hold them up as probably the best example. Marketing didn't start in a department. It started in customer success. They had different roles in different parts of the business because they adopted that. They accepted that marketing was important to them.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to the story of Xero, and I'm not the expert, but I've certainly talked to Ron Jury about it a few times, is he started with the insight that accountants' lives were difficult. And how could he fix that? And it was that kind of customer mindset that led to Accounting Made Beautiful. It led to a whole lot of, and then an ecosystem, and the whole thing started. But it started with a customer insight.
Yeah, and being able to solve a real world problem in a unique way. Let's not comment on that journey they've done, and they are best in class. I think.
Plus, they've got some good promotional stuff too. That's the bit. It's hard, isn't it? Because you go, the promotional activity is really good. They do the Xero comms, and they've got great logos, and they've got all that stuff. They do that well as well. The marketing execution, comms. Yeah. But broader than that is bigger.
Well, and the promotion works well because they're clear of the problem they're solving. They're clear of who their competitors are. They know how to show up in a different way. They know how to live the brand experience. Therefore, the promotion becomes a lot clearer. Any mid-sized companies that are doing it well, like anyone that you see, even anyone that you've come across in the last year that you think is sort of really using marketing as a growth driver inside their business?
I'll go into Aura again, because as I say, I think they're the ones that I really like. Again, the clarity of understanding their customer need and starting with this idea of the real, there's this whole thing about you should build products where people are bleeding from the neck, in the metaphorical sense. And the real challenge here is that theft in retail and retail crime is off the charts, way bigger problem than you or I probably appreciate. And they started with that insight, and then they started, well, why is that the case, and why isn't technology helping, and how could we apply technology to help in this particular scenario? So they kind of, again, started with that mindset, customer mindset, and then built some cool tech. But they didn't start with, hey, I've got a really cool AI algorithm that can detect, people, where can I use it? It was much more from the insight level. So I think that's really good. And then using that to get into law enforcement and getting that kind of referrals and I think they do a great job.
And there's a nice order to that, and it starts with the customer and understanding the customer and how you reach the customer and how they respond and why you're different, and then that transfers into the sales and the go-to-market and the digital, and
the big advantage with that goes back to with AI is if you started with a product mindset or an engineering mindset, then when the product shifts or the kind of technology stack shifts, you're kind of scrambling to keep up. Whereas if you started with the customer and their problem, then actually how you get there is less relevant because you still understand the customer so deeply.
And you've got more flexibility to move with the times. So achieving that marketing mindset is obviously a challenge for some companies because we don't have unlimited resource. And so there's this sort of emerging world of fractional, which is, beginning, it's not new, but it's certainly become du jour in the last 12 months. But it does afford...
Fractional is the new gig.
It is the new gig, the new gig economy. But let's not comment on fractional, but I am interested in this whole idea of, what do you think of this ability for tech companies to get access to senior experienced resources to help them to move through that marketing mindset? Because it doesn't just happen overnight, and you do need people who have experienced it before.
And how brilliant it is that this new way of working allows for that to happen. I mean, that's fantastic. Like, you look back and go, why didn't we think of this earlier? I mean, we probably did. It was local contractors, but it's different now because there's a different sort of relationship. And there are potentially different people attracted to working in that space that you can get access to. So to me, it's huge. I mean, if you're setting up a business today, in the same way that you would be a bit nuts to go and buy a whole lot of on-premise servers and buy some packaged software and install it, like we used to do back in Māori. In the same way, it's a very legitimate option to just go, actually, I'm not going to hire people. I'm just going to get the best of lots of people. I need a COO, but I don't need 5 days a week of a COO.
Yes.
I need a chief marketing person, but actually, I probably could just do them 6 days a month or whatever. So that's a really legitimate model for how to build a business now.
Is it, you seeing it working? It's early days.
I think it's early days.
Yeah.
I think the promise of it is strong.
Yes.
Have I seen it working fully in little spots maybe? But I think we've got a way to go yet for it fully proven. Yeah.
And is that because of the people, the way? I mean, it's like anything. There's no silver bullet. If you hire a CMO and don't brief them properly, and don't give them a remit, and don't enable them with a budget, they're not going to be successful. So it is a different way of working.
It is. Yeah, I think it's that, and there's this possessiveness about setting up a business where you want to own it, you want everyone to be in the office, you want to be able to see what they're doing, etc. That we have to get over a little bit of that mindset.
Yeah,
but COVID's potentially helped in that front.
It has, and I think we're seeing some clients adopt that and jump forward very quickly and then turn it off. Yeah. When you don't need a CMO or a COO, as you said, all the time, and it could just be for a
change
project, go to market, or getting ready for a raise, or just have raise. So I agree, it's early days. Also, not all fractionals are created equal, so I think there's a little bit of, not standards, but there's a lot of bit of kind of level setting, and I think the message is do your due diligence. And any hire, this is not a silver bullet, just make sure you've vetted the person, and they have done what they've said they've done and can deliver results.
Yeah, and yes, and potentially go through a reputable source to find them, so that they're not just a one-man band. Because then it is just a contract relationship. So, but if you go into something and you go, actually, there's more of a pool organisation.
And the network, knowing someone who's done and can refer them and those kinds of things. Yeah, okay, that's brilliant. Let's just take a little bit of a switch now. I think we'll talk a little bit about marketing and brand, and it's the end of the year, and I want you to get your crystal ball out. And let's just, as you start to think about 2024, because it literally is just around the corner. I know we're all going to enjoy our summer break. What do you see? What do you see is coming up? What do you think the headwinds and the tailwinds might be for Kiwi tech?
It's mostly tailwinds. I mean,
nice.
I'm, as you will probably have derived, I'm a complete optimist on almost anything ever. So I always see the upside. So yes, there's challenges. Yes, there's been a bit of a downturn. There's been a few businesses have to lay a few people off, etc., etc. But man, that's a short-term cycle. Yeah. The smart businesses are the ones that are right now thinking about what it's going to be like in 12 to 15 to 18, 24 months, because that's when we're going to see an uptick.
Yes.
It's almost a rule that after every down cycle comes an even bigger up cycle. So
every down needs an up.
Yeah, exactly. Every down needs an ups. So you've got to be investing now and thinking, okay, have we got the balance sheet, the capital, and the money in the bank to actually just do that investment? If you haven't, then of course this is not for you. Then you just need to survive. But most of the businesses that are decent have been through 3-4 years of ups and downs and had probably a couple of really good years. They should have hopefully built up a bit of reserve. So I think there's real tailwinds ahead. I think the global opportunity for New Zealand tech is getting better and better all the time, like almost every day. Like the work that we're doing with New Zealand Trade Enterprise, that I do at New Zealand Story, the See Tomorrow First campaign.
Yes.
Absolutely. The data coming out of that is amazing. It's really quite remarkable to see the positive perceptions of New Zealand tech sector, much more than people had naively thought. When you actually go to the bother of researching, you realise that actually we have got some really good international interest in New Zealand's tech. We're seeing we're seeing a diversity of sectors. The cost of actually creating tech just comes down and down and down all the time. I mean, 18 months ago we didn't have anything, we thought AI was 5 years in the future. Now today, if you're not building your tech stack with AI in mind, then you're missing the trick. Even from a sales and marketing point of view, you can now use AI to automate and potentially even replace, and I know that sounds terrible, but or at least supplement your workforce.
Absolutely, your workforce should become more efficient and productive. I think, and higher value tasks.
Some of those tasks that you just hate doing, like those sort of real door knocking style, trying to find leads or whatever. A lot of that stuff can be automated very easily now. So to me, the cost of doing business is coming down at the same time that the receptivity is going up. Where the opportunity is there, where the brand of New Zealand is growing. So to me, it's only positive. And of course, we're recording this on a day when we've just had a new government sworn in, so we've got, at least sort of 3 years of certainty ahead of us from a government point of view, as much certainty as you can ever have. But you roughly know what the shape of this government's going to look like, and you can play into that. So
yes.
In the 6 to 12 months leading up to an election, it's always a bit wobbly. People don't want to invest, and they're not sure what's going to happen. Well, you haven't got that uncertainty. You now know.
Are you seeing a bit of an increase in business confidence? Yeah, we're seeing that as well. Yeah, and
confidence to do something, not necessarily. No, they're just going, right, we now know, right, let's get on with it. We've waited for whatever reason. The interest rates were wobbling around. Now we can see they're probably going to come down. The immigration settings are now becoming a bit more obvious, etc., etc. So you can start to plan a little bit more long term than potentially you were 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. What's the one piece of advice you would give to Kiwi Tech CEOs, founders for next year as they coming up?
I think you've got to look at the medium to long term. It depends on how long your sort of cycle of businesses that you're in. If you're in a real survival mode, then I'm sorry, but you just survive.
Just survive.
But if
survive to thrive. I think.
Survive to thrive. Yeah, but if you're in that mode of going, actually, I want to run a business. I'm going to be here for a while. Then now's the time to make those investments. People, invest into the right people that understand the future of where technology is going to take us. Invest in your brand, like we talked about. Invest in your customers, like making sure you really understand your customers. Do think about those opportunities that are going to emerge. They're going to get easier and easier, like international access will get easier. The tech stack will become more commoditized. That sounds terrible, but it will. The tech will be no longer the problem. Now it's going to be how do we understand the customer deep enough to actually provide solutions for them.
Yep.
So I think it's that sort of stuff that you've got to be thinking about. So it's more strategic. Sorry, buzzword. Sorry.
It's okay. We love strategy. We eat strategy for breakfast.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. It's not just like, how do I get the next contract that will see me through another 2 months? It's like, actually, how am I going to build the value in the medium to long term?
Yeah, and I think that comment about people, there are some interesting, there are amazing people on the market now, but not necessarily based in New Zealand. So thinking about how you get access to that talent.
Yeah.
Outside of the standard talent pool now, I think there's some real opportunities there. Yeah. You talked a bit about tech. Other than AI, because that's the next question, but what are you seeing as emerging technologies and opportunities in that space for companies in New Zealand?
In sectors, obviously, you've got things like fintech is bigger and bigger all the time. New Zealand's fintech sector seems to be growing massively.
Gaming. Look at this, according to the TIN 100, 200, it's the biggest sector now.
I saw that report the other day. It's the biggest sector. It's outstripped others. I mean, there's no constraint to that one. Yeah, and again, this goes back to the reason that the fintech sector is so big, and I'm not sure, Greg, if you put this in your report, but you should have, is because of our trustworthy business environment. This is the easiest place to start innovating in the fintech space.
Right, and where trust is paramount.
We've got trust as a starting point. You wouldn't start up that sounds terrible, Bangladeshi fintech company as easily because there's 16 different types of tax, there's this and that, there's difficulty, etc. So I think that's kind of one area where you can see. I personally think that deep tech is going to be a big part of New Zealand's future. I think that we've seen a really explosion of growth of software tech and SaaS and other models, and that's all great, and that will continue its impressive path. But New Zealand's deep tech sector seems to be really coming into its own. It's slower, it's harder, obviously. It's more, the translation of science to industry and commercial outcomes is much harder. But we're starting to really see that in the medtech space,
we are seeing
the space industry, materials, etc. You're seeing new funds that have come along that just specialise in, we've probably got 3 or 4 funds now in New Zealand that just specialise in kind of deep tech of some capacity. So I think that's a really exciting area as well. Yeah,
we're seeing that as well, and agri-tech, which is traditional, but we're also Latin America. There's a huge amount of growth there. So, look, and I think, if we think about the sort of the innovation that's coming there, we now know that generative AI or GAI, as we now know, and there's been the last 5 days, it's just been a crazy time with the shifting around of CEOs of certain companies we won't mention here. But AI boom or bust, right? What's your take? Why is it important? What should New Zealand CEOs, not just tech, but New Zealand CEOs be thinking about here from an AI
perspective? AI is here now, so and it's not yet general AI, but and that still might be a way away. But in terms of applicability of AI and anything other than, it used to, for a while there was very esoteric about how AI would work, and now it's no longer the case. ChatGPT and other things have made it really clear how you can apply it.
Yes.
And of course, the standard saying that everyone's using now is that your job might not be taken by AI, but it'll be taken by someone who knows how to use AI better than you do. That's almost a cliche these days, but that's how fast these things change.
True fact.
But the reality is, if you're sitting in a tech company and you're not using, Copilot, or you're not thinking about how to use ChatGPT to create your social media posts or whatever it might be, then you're kind of stupid. Like, that stuff is now so easy. And similarly, if you're further back up into the tech stack and you're not using, some of the toolkits and things like that can now automate things and speed things up, then you're missing out. So it's with us now, but today it's a tool that's emerging in its promise.
Have you seen? Yeah, look, absolutely. I think there are still CEOs who are so busy and are so challenged to understand how to enable their leadership teams and their organization on using the AI. Who's doing the work?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's an element of scared. There's also an element of I'm just not sure where to start. And we are a bit overwhelmed by my LinkedIn feed is every carousel now is 17,000 products that I might want to adopt tomorrow. And I get it. If you're a CEO and you're looking across all your parts of the business.
The good news is we've got past that stage of AI where on Twitter or whatever, someone's going, here's 17 prompts that you need to know. Think that was a big wave of that. That's all I'm thinking.
That's what gone. Yeah.
But I think you're gonna ask me who's doing it well. The answer is I don't know, because I'd imagine lots of people are doing it fairly well, but it's still emerging about what that might mean for them.
Do you think we're struggling to see the commercial use cases outside of integrating it into our products, right? Yeah. But outside of that,
I know I find it really useful when someone actually practically sits down and says, "Here's how I've thought about it in your industry." I went to a tourism summit the other day, and we were talking about the role of AI in tourism, and I'd been going, I'm not sure. And then they gave us 6 really clear use cases, and I was like, okay, now I get it. Visitor satisfaction, promotions activity, modelling itineraries and changes. If you get down a layer from just AI is going to change everything, which is a kind of a useless statement, to something like, actually, here's some practical use cases that we think AI could help with. That start with a need, by the way, to loop it back to that whole need. Then I think you're in a good space.
Yeah, and I think that's the message: is pick something that is, pick a process or a task that's been done today, and then make it better.
Yeah,
right.
Or replace it.
Just however that looks.
Yeah. And there are some just kind of horizontal, general things like sales. Like the future of sales will be AI will do the mining of information to find potential prospects. It might even start doing the kind of prospect to suspect to suspect to prospect kind of loop, and then deliver to an actual salesperson. Here's a warm kind of
absolutely hyper personalization
kind of thing
from an account-based marketing perspective. We're already seeing that kind of play out now and play with that. Though you still need a human to check some of that.
You do for now. I mean, the good thing I was at South by Southwest a few weeks ago and went to a whole lot of sessions on AI, and I think some of the most useful things was, don't think of AI as a computer. Think of AI as an intern in your company.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And you don't just let them do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You keep
That's
an eye
actually
on
a good reminder, I think. That's the quote of the day. We do forget that.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I think that's brilliant. We're gonna wrap up with, what are you reading? What's on your bedside cabinet? And what are you listening to? Like, share some of the insights. Or for fun, you might, like me, I read fiction to just relax.
I don't really read so much fiction. I've been reading, listening to an audio book, Robert Oppenheimer's biography of Oppenheimer. Because I saw the film and I was sort of left unsatisfied by a lot of the nuance in it. And I was always a fan of science and reading kind of science books. So I've been reading that book, which is really interesting. In terms of really understanding a really incredible period of the world's history. There's changes that went through there. So that's one cool thing. Every morning I listen to a guy called Bernard Hickey and his political and sort of economic commentary on New Zealand, which I find endlessly fascinating. Don't always agree with him, but he was an old mate of mine I went to uni with, and he always has great insights.
Nice.
And I sort of like to educate myself in that particular way. And then I listen to a bit of music just for a bit of fun and just a relaxation time. Tends to be, I got into the habit because I started my life as a software developer, or as we used to call them, a programmer. But when I used the word programmer recently with someone, they went, "What the hell's a programmer?" And I went, "You write code." And I went, "Oh, you mean a developer?" And I went, "We didn't have the cool words back then. I was just a developer." But anyway, back then, I used to listen to sort of not quite trance music, but like drum and bass stuff, because it gets your brain going in a different.
It does.
Yeah, and I still listen to that. Yeah, like I go for a walk, I listen to a bit of like Stone Roses.
Yep, nice.
Hark from the Past. And that sort of thing, just gets your brain going in a different way.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, David.
And ukulele music.
Yes, well, we might have to next time just have a little exclusive band run between you and the ukulele group. Hey, look, thank you very much. Really enjoyed chatting, swaying with not a stranger, very much a friend, the tech sector and Sway Tech. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora.